If you're on social media, you believe either one or two things. Pray for Israel or free Palestine, and there's no cross between the two. I think Senator Cotton said it best. If Hamas put their weapons down, there would actually be peace, but if Israel put their weapons down, there would be no Israel.
The confrontation happening in the Middle East really stems from Ishmael and Isaac back in the biblical days and won't be fixed until Jesus returns. But is it really all about two sides killing each other over land? Mostly no, kind of yes. There's a whole bunch to it.
But going off of what the social media gurus are saying, let's break down the whole get off my land claim.
In 1948, after the Arab-Israeli War, East Jerusalem, including this area, came under Jordanian control, a new type of government control, and its Jews were exiled and fled.
But in 1956, the Palestinian refugees in that same area struck a deal with the Jordanian government and basically said, hey, we can stay as refugees here as long as we give up our refugee status, but in return we get some land and it becomes ours.
But that legal transfer never fully happened because there was a lot of he said, she said, no legal documents were fully officially conspired.
And then things got a little messy.
Then there was a 6-day war, and in this war the Jewish people regained control of their land, making the previous contract void, no longer existing because the Jordanian government was no longer in control.
By 1970, there was an Israeli law passed that basically said, hey, Jewish people, you get to have regained control over this property that was originally agreed to before the 1948 agreement. So what that means is the Jewish people basically got it back because it was originally theirs.
In 1982, Israel agreed that these tenants could stay as long as they began to pay rent. Well, they never paid rent. They refused for decades. Nothing ever happened. No rent was paid. And now we're having issues with the tenants who don't want to pay rent.
But what's the big issue about that, you ask? Well, in our opinion, nothing. If you don't pay rent, you're evicted. I'm so sorry, but that's pretty much how it goes everywhere in the world.
So now this is causing a huge uproar, which is why we're seeing it all over social media. There's riots, there's protests, there's fires, there's rockets, there's a lot of people dying, and it's awful. The best way to explain it is like this. What we're seeing happen here in the US with MSM, fake news, propaganda, is exactly what's happening in the Middle East.
So when Hamas kills an Israeli
or a Palestinian,
it's no big deal. But if an Israeli defends itself and the other fellow Palestinians that make up or live in Israel
against Hamas, MSM calls Israel out, calling them overbearing, controlling, and a disaster, and just destroying anything and everything in its path.
It's kind of like this: when BLM or Antifa attacks an innocent person and then they defend themselves, who's painted as the bad person in the mainstream media? The innocent person.
The victim.
It's the same thing's kind of happening. So what can we agree on? Don't trust the mainstream media.
Go figure. But what about when IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, goes into the mosque and they're just breaking entry, and it's such a holy place? How awful, how terrible, such an awful thing to do.
Well, what the mainstream media is not telling you is that those people, the disruptors, let's call them Antifa for easy relatability, is going and throwing rocks towards Israelis and other bystanders, hurting them, and then running into the mosque to be protected.
Mind you, these rocks are being thrown at Jews, Christians, Muslims, Palestinians,
anyone who's in the way.
It doesn't matter. Why would they care?
So what they're saying is that if they do something bad against another civilian and the police go and they go to hide in a mosque and the police go to get them, that is wrong? No, they're hiding in a church. I don't care who you are. If you hide in a church, synagogue, or mosque, the police are going to come get you if you're in trouble.
Period. So, what do you think? Is Palestine in the wrong or is it Israel? Is it both? Who do you think is in the wrong?
Let us know down below, and do not come at us saying we're wrong, XYZ. We have talked to people who live in Palestine, who also live in Israel, who watch people get hit by rocks.
On both sides.
So, don't come at us, do your own research, and let us know what you think. But if you have any more questions, let us know, and we will make another video debunking some of the biggest lies about this whole thing.
As always, make sure you're continually rising up,
standing tall, and fighting back with truth.
Of course, we'll see you in the next one.